If you are over 60 and receiving a state pension, pension credit, or any kind of retirement support, what I'm about to share may frustrate you. Not because the information is difficult to understand, but because many people discover it only after they have already missed out on money that could have helped with bills, food, heating, care costs, or everyday living expenses. Right now, there are pensioners across the UK who are legally entitled to financial support, lump sum payments, discounts, and additional benefits they never claimed. Not because they did anything wrong, not because they failed a test, but because nobody told them these options existed. And that is where things become important. Many people assume that if they qualify for something, the government will automatically contact them. They believe a letter will arrive, a phone call will be made, an alert will appear somewhere. In many cases, that simply does not happen. The system often waits for you to make the first move. Meanwhile, deadlines continue to pass. Opportunities disappear, and thousands of pounds can be lost. Today, we're going through 5 hidden payouts and financial opportunities that many pensioners are still missing. Some are worth hundreds of pounds a month. Some can lead to significant lump sum payments. And one of them involves a little-known rule that many people walk away from without realizing it may unlock thousands of pounds in extra support. Let's begin with what is often described as one of the most underclaimed benefits available to pensioners: attendance allowance. Many people don't realize that this benefit is not only for people with severe disabilities. That misunderstanding alone prevents huge numbers of pensioners from claiming. Some people hear the words attendance allowance and immediately think of full-time care, wheelchairs, or very serious health conditions. But the reality is much broader. If you are state pension age and you have a physical or mental condition that means you need help, supervision, or support during the day or night, you may qualify. The important thing is that the assessment focuses on your needs, not whether someone is actually helping you. That distinction catches many people by surprise. For example, perhaps arthritis makes it difficult to get dressed. Maybe getting in and out of bed is becoming harder. Perhaps you struggle with balance and worry about falling. Maybe your eyesight has deteriorated. Perhaps diabetes is creating daily difficulties. Or maybe memory problems are beginning to affect everyday life. Many people assume these issues are simply part of getting older and never think to investigate financial support. That can be a costly mistake. Attendance allowance is not based on savings. It is not based on investments. It is not based on the value of your home. It is not based on how much money you have in the bank. What most pensioners are not being told is that many homeowners, savers, and financially careful retirees may still qualify. The amount available can be significant. Depending on your circumstances, weekly payments can add up to thousands of pounds per year. And here is where urgency becomes important. Many people assume they can claim later. They tell themselves they'll look into it next month. Then, next month becomes next year. Meanwhile, every week that passes is another week without money they may have been entitled to receive. If you think attendance allowance might apply to you, don't dismiss it because of assumptions. Look at the actual eligibility rules. Many people discover they qualified long before they ever applied. Now let's move to something even more surprising. State pension underpayments. This is an issue that has affected large numbers of pensioners over the years. Many people assume that once the state pension is calculated, the amount must be correct. After all, surely a government system would automatically work it out properly. Unfortunately, things have not always been that simple. Over time, reviews identified thousands of pensioners who had been receiving less than they should have received. Some underpayments stretched back years. Others involved substantial sums. In some cases, pensioners or their families later discovered they were owed thousands of pounds. This is particularly important for certain older groups of pensioners, especially women who reached state pension age under older pension arrangements. Many people don't realise that pension entitlement calculations could sometimes be affected by information linked to spouses or deceased partners. The result was that some people received less than they should have. The important thing is not to assume that because a payment has been arriving for years, it must automatically be correct. Many people never question it. They trust the figure, they accept it, and they move on. But what happens next may surprise some people. When errors are identified, correction payments can sometimes result in substantial backdated amounts. For some households, that has meant thousands of pounds being paid after reviews uncovered mistakes. Now, this does not mean everyone watching is owed money. But it does mean that if you fall into one of the groups affected by historic pension calculation issues, it may be worth checking. The consequence of doing nothing is simple. If you never ask questions, you may never know whether an error existed. And many people only discover these issues after hearing about them from others. Let's move to another area where pensioners lose money every single year. Council tax reduction. This one affects far more people than expected. Every year, countless pensioners receive a council tax bill, assume the amount is fixed, and pay it without question. Month after month, year after year. What many people don't realise is that reductions may be available depending on their circumstances. In some cases, the reduction can be substantial. In other situations, council tax liability can be reduced dramatically. And for some people receiving certain benefits, support can be even more significant. The problem is that local authorities generally do not go door to door telling residents they may qualify. The bill arrives. Payment is expected. And many households never investigate further. This creates a situation where people may be paying more than necessary simply because they never submitted an application. Think about how common this is. A pensioner receives a bill. They assume everyone pays the same. They assume nothing can be changed. They continue paying. Years pass. Potential savings are missed. This is where things become important. Even people who don't qualify for one benefit may qualify for another form of support. Many people focus only on major payments and completely overlook reductions that lower ongoing household expenses. But reducing a bill can have the same effect as increasing income. The money stays in your pocket. That's why checking council tax support options can be so important, especially when household costs remain under pressure. Now we come to perhaps the most misunderstood point in today's discussion. This is the one many people walk away from without realizing they may have just closed the door on additional financial support. It involves carer's allowance and something known as underlying entitlement. At first glance, this sounds complicated. But the basic idea is surprisingly simple. Imagine you spend a large amount of time caring for someone. Perhaps it's a spouse. Perhaps it's a partner. Perhaps it's a family member. You provide support week after week. You help with daily tasks. You look after their well-being. Naturally, you hear about carer's allowance and decide to investigate. Then you discover something disappointing. Because of your state pension, you may not actually receive the carer's allowance payment itself. Many people stop right there. They see that they won't receive the payment. They assume the process is pointless. They throw the paperwork away. Case closed. That is the mistake. Because what many pensioners are not being told is that a successful recognition of entitlement can sometimes create additional opportunities elsewhere in the benefits system. This is where the concept of underlying entitlement becomes important. The payment itself may not be made because of benefit interaction rules, but recognition of the entitlement may still matter a great deal. For some households, it can affect eligibility calculations for other support. It can potentially open doors that appeared closed. And that is why many experienced advisors encourage people not to stop simply because they believe they won't receive a direct payment. The paperwork outcome may still have value. Think about how easy it is to miss this. A letter arrives. The person sees they won't receive a payment. They assume the answer is no. But the reality may be much more complicated. This is a perfect example of why understanding the rules matters. Sometimes the obvious answer isn't the complete answer. Sometimes the real value is hidden behind a process that most people abandon halfway through. And that brings us to the fifth opportunity, state pension backdating. This is another area where timing can make a huge difference. Many people don't realize that if they delayed claiming their state pension after becoming eligible, there may be situations where backdating can be relevant. The key issue is awareness, because once certain time limits pass, options become more restricted. This creates a common problem. A person reaches pension age, life gets busy, paperwork gets delayed, a claim isn't submitted immediately, months pass, then they finally make contact. The question becomes whether any entitlement can be backdated and how far. Many people never ask, they simply accept whatever date is provided. But asking questions matters. Understanding your options matters. Knowing whether backdating applies to your circumstances matters, because even a relatively short period can represent a substantial amount of money. What most pensioners are not being told is that timing decisions can have major financial consequences. A delay that seems small can sometimes involve hundreds or even thousands of pounds. And once a deadline has passed, there may be little that can be done. That is why checking your own position is so important. Not next year. Not someday. Now, because information is most valuable before opportunities disappear. When you step back and look at everything we've covered today, a clear pattern begins to emerge. Attendance allowance is often missed because people wrongly assume they won't qualify. State pension underpayments may go unnoticed because people trust historical calculations without question. Council tax reduction is overlooked because many people assume the bill they receive is final. Underlying entitlement opportunities are abandoned because people misunderstand how the rules work. And backdating opportunities can disappear because people never ask what options are available. Different situations, different rules, different forms, but the same outcome. People lose money simply because they didn't know where to look. The important thing is that none of these areas should be dismissed based on assumptions. Too many pensioners say, "That won't apply to me," then later discover it did. Too many people assume support is only for someone worse off than they are, then find out eligibility had nothing to do with the assumptions they made. Too many households continue paying bills, missing discounts, or overlooking support simply because nobody ever explained what was available. Knowledge matters. Questions matter. And checking matters, especially when the cost of not checking could be measured in hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of pounds over time. So if any of today's information sounds familiar, take a closer look at your own circumstances. Review what you're receiving. Review what you've never applied for. Review whether old assumptions are preventing you from accessing support that may be available. And don't forget about family members, friends, neighbours, carers, widows, widowers, and other pensioners who may never hear this information unless someone shares it with them. A simple conversation can sometimes save someone from missing out on money they genuinely need. The biggest mistake is assuming everything has already been checked. Many people discover that isn't true. Staying informed remains one of the best ways to protect your finances, safeguard your benefits, and avoid missing opportunities that may be available to you. Thank you for watching, and remember, when it comes to pensions, benefits, discounts, and support schemes, the people who ask questions are often the people who discover what they were entitled to all along. Share this information with anyone who may benefit from it, and continue staying informed to help protect your finances, your benefits, and your future.